Chapter 241, Visiting the Market Area, 1. Looking out the window, Zhao Lijai saw that the team members had already exited the vehicles. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stepped out of the car. Everyone carried a backpack filled with emergency rations, medicine, water, and crystal cores. Before they departed, Zhao Lijai collected the armored vehicles into her space. Opening the map, Jin Zuyan pointed at the commercial district and said, "Today, we are going to the market area. Besides searching for supplies, our priority is finding seeds." When they heard this, everyone understood that their captain wanted to seize the initiative and secure the seeds for future development. From the market area, we will head to the office district. Our target is the global company's building, he added. Everyone nodded and replied in unison, understood. After discussing the plan, they packed up and left. Due to the number of zombies and abandoned cars blocking the road, it took them longer to reach the market area, as they had to clear the road and move the vehicles. 2 hours later, they finally arrived at the market area. Qin Luzi checked the map in his mind for a moment before saying, "There are 2 groups of people in the market. Each group has around 5 to 15 people, and there are a total of 8 ability users. They are currently clearing the zombies in the north and east areas." Jin Zuyan thought for a moment and said, "We will head to the south area first." Understood. Since there were other groups nearby, they didn't split up and move together. As soon as they entered through the south entrance, they saw the road crowded with zombies. Zra! The moment the zombies caught their scent, they turned and let out roars before rushing toward them. Seeing this, everyone pulled out their guns and began shooting. To avoid drawing too much attention from the other groups, they refrained from using their abilities, except for Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai. While the team members fired at the zombies, Zhao Lijai created several ice needles. With a wave of her hand, the needles pierced through the zombies' skulls, killing them instantly. Walking beside her, Jin Zuyan flicked a wisp of black flame, burning the zombie corpses into piles of ash and leaving only some crystal cores behind. As usual, Zyro Kai was tasked with collecting the crystal cores. He walked behind his captain, accompanied by Li Sikai for protection in case of emergencies. 10 minutes later, everyone began to notice something strange about the zombies. Perhaps due to mutation, it now took multiple shots to kill them. Compared to before, the zombies' speed and agility had clearly improved. Realizing this, everyone's expressions turned grim. With how quickly the zombies were evolving, humanity's chances of survival would be slim if they didn't adapt as soon as possible. 30 minutes later, Qin Luzi checked the mental map and said, "Captain, the area within a 200-meter radius is clear." Jin Zuyan nodded and said, "Split into 3 groups. Feng Yun, Zyro Kai, you 2 join different groups and collect everything. We will inspect the seeds later." Understood. Zhao Lijai walked toward the store on her left, followed by Jin Zuyan. When she entered, she saw the shelves filled with various types of candies. From traditional treats such as sesame candies, Maltose candies, and white rabbit candies, to modern favorites among youngsters like gummies, chocolate, and bubblegum, there was everything. There were also a variety of candied fruits, pickles, jams, and dried fruits. When she saw the treats, her eyes lit up. With a wave of her hand, she collected everything into her space, including the shelves. Seeing this, Jin Zuyan smiled and said, "Ajai, it seems you still love candy." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai replied casually, "When life is too bitter, eating something sweet can brighten my day." Jin Zuyan nodded but said nothing. For him, no matter how bitter life was, as long as she was with him, he could endure anything. After collecting the candies, they moved on to the next store and continued gathering supplies. Most stores in the area sold similar items. Only when they reached the last store did they finally find what they had been looking for. This store was 2 to 3 times larger than the others, and the seeds inside were all vacuum-packed. Picking up a bag, Zhao Lijai said, "Brother Yan, the seeds are in good condition. We are lucky." Jin Zuyan checked the seeds and nodded. There are not only flowers and fruit seeds, but also vegetables and grains. Feeling happy, Zhao Lijai collected the seeds and opened the door behind the counter. They assumed the room was a rest area for the owner, but to their surprise, it was a warehouse. The warehouse was several times larger than the storefront, filled with boxes stacked almost to the ceiling. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai said, "Brother Yan, with just these seeds alone, our trip to the market area is worth it." Jin Zuyan nodded in agreement. Before the second rain, they had to gather as many seeds as possible. After the second rain, everything, including seeds, would be infected by the zombie virus. Even vacuum-packed seeds wouldn't all survive. That's why finding these seeds was a lucky strike. With her space, she could cultivate more seeds, ensuring they wouldn't have to worry about having none for future planting. While they busied themselves collecting supplies in the south area, the people in the north and east weren't having such an easy time. Raw. As a zombie roared, it lunged at a nearby man. Before its sharp teeth could reach his neck, the man swung an iron rod. Duag. The force of the swing cracked the zombie's skull instantly. As the zombie's corpse fell to the ground with a thud, one of his teammates shouted, "Boss, there are too many, we need to retreat." Boss Lin glanced around and said, "Head to the east area, we will meet up with the other groups." Got it. As they retreated, the groups from the eastern area were also fleeing toward the south. Chapter 242, Visiting the Market Area 2. 30 minutes later, Zhao Lijai and her team finished clearing all the stores in the south area and were about to head west. But before they could leave, the sounds of battle drew closer. Boom! Soon after, a group of people came running toward them, followed by a large horde of zombies. Upon spotting them, one of the people screamed, "Help!" Jin Zuyan frowned as he observed the ability users in the group, randomly throwing their abilities at the zombies. Not only were their attacks ineffective, but the noise was also attracting even more zombies. Seeing that the Phantom team didn't move to help, a woman sprinted ahead of the others. When she reached them, she stretched out her hand to grab Jin Zuyan's arm while shouting, "Brother, save me." Slap! Before her hand could touch him, Zhao Lijai stepped in and slapped the dirty claw away. Looking at her coldly, she said, "Touch him, and I will cut off your hands." The woman was stunned by her hostility and stared at her in fear. Ignoring her, Zhao Lijai grabbed her boyfriend's hand and said with clear displeasure, "Brother Yan, can't you dodge when someone tries to grab you?" Jin Zuyan was amused by her possessiveness and replied with a smile, "If you hadn't slapped her, I would have kicked her. Since I'm yours, no one else can touch me." Hearing his words, she let out a snort and said, "Sweet talker, let's deal with the zombies first." As soon as she finished speaking, the group finally reached their position. Judging by their clean clothes and tidy appearance, they were clearly well equipped and strong. Noticing this, they quickly hid behind the Phantom team. Raw! The Phantom team members were stunned by the sheer number of zombies coming their way. The horde was nearly triple the size of the one they had just cleared. Although the number of zombies was less than 1,000, due to the small area, their movements were limited. They couldn't recklessly use their abilities, or they would burn out the market area. Jin Zuyan assessed the situation in a moment and said, "Aitg and I will go to the front. The rest of you stay here and assist us." Understood. Everyone pulled out their guns at his order, and at the same time, Jin Zuyan rushed toward the zombies while unsheathing his longsword. Following behind him, Zhao Lijai pulled out her dagger and infused her energy into it. Crack! As the dagger was covered by a thin layer of water blade, she swung it and severed several zombies' heads in one smooth motion. Raw! Several zombies pounced on her from every side. Seeing this, she bent her knees and leaped into the air. As she flipped, she waved her hand and several ice needles flew toward the zombies' foreheads. Stab, stab, stab. The ice needles pierced the zombies' skulls, killing them instantly. Landing on the ground with one knee bent, Zhao Lijai placed her palm on the ground. The next second, the ground was covered with a layer of water, which quickly turned into solid ice. As the ground froze, the zombies slipped and fell one after another like dominoes. Seeing the zombies struggling to stand up, Jin Zuyan let out a chuckle and moved farther away from her, ensuring that his flames wouldn't melt her ice. Standing in front of the survivors, the Phantom team killed the fallen zombies with their air guns while chatting leisurely. Sister-in-law's control over her ability is so good, Yin Yusheng said, clicking his tongue. Chen Qianfeng nodded and added, "Not only does our sister-in-law have good control, but her imagination is also vast. She can think of so many ways to use her ability to the fullest. Her adaptability in battle is equal to most of us." Was our sister-in-law really just an ordinary university student? The way she fights seems more like that of a trained mercenary, Shen Jinj said thoughtfully. While they were chatting and killing zombies, Boss Lin and his team finally reached the east area, but the area was filled with scattered zombies, and they couldn't find another group of people. Seeing this, one of his team members asked, "Boss, what should we do now? We are trapped." Boss Lin's back and forehead were covered with cold sweat as he observed his surroundings. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Go to the south area. That area has fewer zombies, and we can escape from there." Hearing this, his team members nodded and changed direction. They didn't use the wide road, but chose a narrow alley instead. Though the risk of being eaten alive was higher if they got trapped in the narrow alley, it also had its advantages. Due to the narrowness, the zombies couldn't flood the alley all at once. At most, 3 zombies could pass at a time, and they could handle that. As they ran, the zombies were slowly left behind. They heaved a sigh of relief but didn't dare to stop. When they entered the south area, they heard the roars of zombies coming from the entrance. "Boss, should we go or hide?" one of his team members asked. Boss Lin thought for a moment and said, "We underestimated the number of zombies in this area and overestimated ourselves. If we hide now, we might be trapped here for a long time. Without supplies, we will die. So the only chance we have now is to go to the entrance. Even if we have to fight, we need to leave this market area," he added. His team members exchanged glances and after a moment nodded and said, "Boss, we will follow you." Boss Lin was delighted by their decision and moved by their trust. He reached out to pat their shoulders and said, "Good brothers." After taking a short breath, they held their iron rods tightly and continued running toward the south entrance. They expected another tough battle to await them. Chapter 243, Nothing is Free in This World. Unexpectedly, when they arrived, Boss Lin and his team saw a man wearing a black tracksuit, holding a longsword covered in black flame, effortlessly killing the zombies with a slight smile on his handsome face. Whenever he swung his longsword, several zombies would be beheaded or split into half. Black blood and rotten flesh scattered on the ground, but none touched his clothes nor his body. The moment they recognized him, Boss Lin and his team were stunned. They stood there unmoving, watching him in awe. Jin Zuyan had already noticed them when they appeared. When he saw their faces, he recognized one of them as his Aitg's captain from her previous life. While killing the zombies, he wondered what they were doing here and how fate could be so mysterious. Even though they had departed from the husbandries at different times, they were still able to meet here today. 10 minutes later, all of the zombies were killed, and Jin Zuyan burned the corpses into piles of black ash. Before anyone could react, Zyro Kai had already collected all the crystal cores scattered on the ground, leaving none behind. Chin Luzi walked over to his captain and scanned the area for a moment before saying, "Captain, there are no more zombies in this area, but the north and west areas have around 3,000 zombies in total. The east area has around 500. Hearing this, Jin Zuyan nodded and said, "Take a 10-minute break. We will go to the east area first before cleaning up the rest." Understood, Chin Luzi nodded and went to inform the team. Jin Zuyan swung his longsword to clean off the black blood and rotten flesh from the blade before sheathing it. He gave Boss Lin a glance before walking toward his girlfriend. Standing in front of her, he noticed a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. He took a handkerchief from his pocket and gently wiped it while saying, "Aitg, I saw Boss Lin and his team." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai paused her movement of cleaning her blade and looked at him. "They are here?" she asked. Jin Zuyan nodded and asked her back, "Aitg, should we send them and the others to the base?" Zhao Lijai thought for a moment and nodded. Sheathing her dagger, she said, "Since we want to help Captain Zun build the base, having more people is always a good thing. The ordinary people can help build the wall, and Boss Lin and his team can assist in clearing out the surrounding zombies." Jin Zuyan nodded and said, "Then I will let Zhang Yuan handle it." Knowing her boyfriend was the Lord of Vinegar, Zhao Lijai didn't insist on talking to Boss Lin herself and agreed to let him handle everything. Okay. Seeing how obedient she was, Jin Zuyan felt like his heart was soaked in honey. He always worried that she would disappear suddenly, and all of this was just a dream. Only when she treated him differently from everyone else did he feel a little bit of security. After a moment, Zhao Lijai took the handkerchief from his hand and helped wipe his sweat. Then she pulled out a small bottle of water from her waist bag and said, "Brother Yan, drink some water." "Thank you." While the two were lost in their own world, Zhang Yuan had already walked over to the survivors and said, "Everyone, the number of zombies in this area is very high. I suggest you leave and find somewhere safe." The moment the survivors heard his words, one of them protested, "Comrade, we came here first to look for supplies. You can't just force us to leave." "I'm not forcing you to leave," Zhang Yuan replied expressionlessly. "If you want to stay, you are free to do so, but my team won't protect you. And if you use us as a shield again, don't blame us for being ruthless, he added. Comrade, you are so strong. What's wrong with protecting us ordinary people? Another survivor asked shamelessly. Standing nearby, Shen Jinj sneered and replied, We are strong because we fought to get stronger. We don't owe you anything, and we are not obligated to protect you. If you insist on staying in this dangerous place, then you are responsible for your own safety. If you get killed by zombies, it's because of your own decision, and because you didn't have the ability to protect yourself. As soon as he finished, everyone's expressions changed. Some were angry as they found his words were too harsh, while others were embarrassed or even scared. Noticing that the situation could escalate, Zhang Yuan shot Shen Jinj a glance. Seeing his vice-captain's warning, Shen Jinj shrugged and walked off toward Feng Yun. After sending the troublemaker away, Zhang Yuan turned to the survivors and said, What he said was harsh, but it's the truth. If you can't get stronger and always rely on others, you won't survive. A woman then asked, Comrade, we are just ordinary people. How can we fight those monsters? Just then, Jin Zuyan walked over and said, If you can't kill zombies, then you need to find another way to survive. There's a base 2 hours from here, built by a group of ability users. They accept anyone, even ordinary people. You will be able to earn food and water as long as you are willing to work. The survivors were stunned by his words. They had been driven out of government camps and other ability user shelters for not being able to contribute anything. This news sounded too good to be true. Comrade, can we really go there and find shelter? An old man asked. Jin Zuyan looked at him and replied, Nothing is free in this world. Hearing this, the hope they had just regained began to shatter, but before they could fall into despair, he continued. At that base, you have to work to get paid. You can exchange your earnings for food, water, and even housing. Even if you can't kill zombies, you can contribute by helping the leaders build the base. They will assign you work based on what you can do. After pausing, he added, Even old people and children are accepted. Chapter 244, Entering Her Space, 1. The survivors looked at each other and began murmuring among themselves after hearing Jin Zuyan's words. After a moment, one of them asked, Comrade, can you tell us where this base is? Instead of answering, Jin Zuyan looked at Zhang Yuan and said, Old Zhang, take a few members and escort these people back. The moment he heard that, a thought flashed in Zhang Yuan's mind. He looked at his captain and asked, Captain, are you planning to help Sun Qi? The two had fought together through countless battles, and their tacit understanding was deep. Just one glance from Jin Zuyan was enough for Zhang Yuan to understand what he intended. Since his captain had decided he would support him, he nodded and said, I will bring Shen Jinj, Zyro Kai, Chen Kai Feng, and Li Sikai with me. Jin Zuyan nodded and said, After you send the survivors back to the base, return as soon as possible. We will wait here. Understood. After their brief discussion, Zhang Yuan turned to the survivors and said, We will take you to the base. Everyone, follow me. Then he walked to his team and said, Jinj, Zyro Kai, Feng, Sikai, you are with me. Since there were quite a lot of survivors, they told them to find usable cars or buses. As not all had fuel, they siphoned gas from abandoned vehicles to fill the tanks. Before leaving, Zyro Kai handed out food and water to the survivors and said, When you reach the base, work hard, and you won't have to worry about going hungry. Thank you, comrade, the survivors said gratefully. Waving a hand, Zyro Kai replied, If you want to thank someone, thank my captain. Without his orders, we wouldn't be helping you. The survivors looked out the window and saw the young man smiling at a girl while they chatted. Witnessing how powerful the couple was, those who had previously harbored ulterior motives now quietly gave up their delusions. After they left, Jin Zuyan looked at Boss Lin and asked, Why didn't you and your team go with them? Boss Lin let out an embarrassed chuckle as he walked over. When he was a few steps away, he said, Comrade, we came to look for supplies. We didn't want to go back empty-handed. After pausing for a moment, he added, If possible, can we join your team? We promise not to compete for the supplies your team finds. We will find our own. Just let us follow you. Raising an eyebrow, Jin Zuyan said, So what you are saying is, you want to reap the benefits while my team does all the work. The moment he said this, Boss Lin quickly waved his hand and explained, Comrade, you have misunderstood us. My team and I never intended to take advantage of yours. Oh, then what exactly do you want by following my team? Jin Zuyan asked. Scratching his head, Boss Lin replied, Well, after we left the husbandries, we picked up several children and women along the way, and we almost used up all our supplies. If we can't follow your team, then, could you sell us some of the supplies you find later? We have crystal cores, and we are willing to pay. Hearing this, Jin Zuyan looked at Zhao Lijai and asked, Aitg, what do you think? Zhao Lijai glanced at her former captain and said, if they want to follow us, then let them. With them around, we can relax a little. Nodding, Jin Zuyan turned back to Boss Lin and said, since my girlfriend said so, you and your team can follow us. You can take the supplies you find, but we want all the seeds. Boss Lin and his members were delighted by this. They quickly nodded and said, no problem at all. Right now, their priority was food and water. As for the seeds, they had no land to grow anything, so they were useless to them. It was better to trade them for something they needed. After resting for a while, Jin Zuyan's team headed toward the east area. As she walked past Boss Lin and his team, Zhao Lijai handed each of them a bottle of water and a pack of compressed biscuits from her backpack. Eat something to regain your energy, she said. Then she quickened her steps to catch up with her boyfriend. Without the survivors screaming or shouting, the zombies were more scattered, making it easier to clear them out. In less than half an hour, they had already eliminated all the zombies with their airguns and began checking the stores. Seeing Boss Lin's team still standing there unmoving, Jin Zuyan said, go check the stores and take what you need. The rest will go to my team. Comrade, how much can we take? Boss Lin asked. Take as much as you can, Jin Zuyan replied casually. The moment Boss Lin and his team heard this, their eyes lit up, and their impression of the Phantom team improved greatly. They had thought the team was a cold-blooded and profit-driven team, but unexpectedly, they turned out to be strong, generous, and kind. Unaware they had just received the Good Person card from Boss Lin and his team members, Zyro Kai and Zhao Lijai were busy collecting everything in the market. It took 5 hours to clear all the zombies in the area and gather supplies. When they returned to the south entrance, Boss Lin asked, Comrade, are you heading back to the base now? Zhao Lijai shook her head and replied, we won't go back for now. We still want to visit the commercial district. Boss Lin looked disappointed but said, then we won't bother you any longer. My team will head to the base your boyfriend mentioned. If fate allows, we will meet again. Zhao Lijai nodded and replied with a smile, Captain Lin, have a safe journey. When Boss Lin heard her calling him Captain, he was stunned for a moment before he replied with a chuckle, thank you. Chapter 245, Entering Her Space, 2. Not long after Boss Lin's group departed, Zhang Yuan and the others returned. Before leaving the market area, the team had lunch together. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Zhao Lijai took out several boxes of self-heating meals from her space and shared them with everyone. After eating, they took turns keeping watch while the rest napped. Sitting in the car, Zhao Lijai leaned against the passenger seat with her eyes closed. Her mind entered the space, and she began organizing the seeds. Besides grains, they had also found medicinal herb seeds and even ginseng seedlings. Since the farmland was designated to grow grains, she decided to plant the medicinal herbs and ginseng on the grassland near the husbandries. After pulling the weeds, she tilled the soil, watered it with the pond water, and scattered the seeds. When she finished, she opened her eyes and saw her boyfriend staring at her intently. Startled by his sharp gaze, Zhao Lijai asked, Brother Yan, what's wrong? Jin Zuyan reached out and touched her cheek. After a moment he asked, Aitg, are you hiding something from me? Brother Yan, why do you suddenly ask that? He observed her for a while before saying, if you don't want to tell me now, I will wait. After he let out a long sigh, he opened the car door and stepped out. Watching his retreating back, Zhao Lijai covered her fast-beating heart and murmured, did he find out anything different about my space? While she was still confused, Jin Zuyan turned to look at her again. Whenever she slept, he would often observe her in silence. Sometimes her breathing was so shallow it seemed as if she was in a coma, like she could disappear at any moment. And yet, during those times, he always felt a strange connection between their minds. Just now, while she was asleep, he saw a flash of grassland in his mind. In the vast field, the mutated animals they had collected before were running freely. On the opposite side, there were heaps of supplies they collected, but what shocked him the most was seeing Zhao Lijai planting ginseng seedlings they had just found. After everything he had experienced, he no longer doubted the existence of supernatural things. The idea of a spiritual space didn't seem impossible for him. He didn't know how he had been able to glimpse her space, but since she hadn't told him, he would wait until she was ready to open her heart completely. The thought of her not trusting him completely made him feel like he was being pulled into an abyss. Helplessness, anxiety, fear, and uncertainty gnawed at him from the inside. Just before he lost himself in his dark emotions, a pair of soft hands wrapped around his hand. Feeling the warmth seeping into his cold body, he snapped out of his trance. Unaware of the turmoil in her boyfriend's heart, Zhao Lijai took a deep breath and said, "Brother Yan, I want to show you something. Will you come with me?" Jin Zuyan's heart pounded so fast he thought it might leap out of his chest when he heard her words. He looked at her and nodded. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai pulled him toward one of the nearby empty buildings. After entering, she closed the door and said, "Brother Yan, please don't be surprised by what you see later." "Okay. I don't know if it will work, so please don't be disappointed either if I can't show you anything," she added. "Okay." After a moment of hesitation, Zhao Lijai finally took a deep breath, closed her eyes and whispered, "Enter." As soon as she spoke, the two of them disappeared from that place and reappeared inside the space. When Zhao Lijai opened her eyes, she saw her boyfriend standing in front of her, staring at the surroundings in shock. She blinked in disbelief, realizing she had actually brought him into her space. Grinning widely, she said, "Brother Yan, we are inside my space." Jin Zuyan was stunned by what he saw. When he took a breath, the fresh air filled his lungs and warmed his entire body. It had been a long time since he had breathed such clean air. He felt refreshed and rejuvenated. Turning around, he took in the vast expanse of grassland and rich black soil. The farmland was planted with rice, wheat, and potatoes. Near the edge of the fields, rows of fruit trees and strawberry bushes lined the grassland. Zhao Lijai, excited to finally have someone else inside her space, said, "Brother Yan, let me show you my house." Grabbing his hand, she pulled him toward a 2-story house. The moment it came into view, Jin Zuyan's body stiffened. This house looked incredibly familiar. As they stepped inside, memories from his past life surged back. This wasn't just a familiar house. This was the exact one he had bought before the apocalypse, the one he had prepared to be their wedding home. Back then, he had planned everything before even finding her, but the apocalypse had arrived too soon, and the house was destroyed. In this life, he hadn't bothered to buy it again, choosing instead to focus on other preparations. Yet here it was, standing perfectly before him in her space. Unaware of the emotions brewing in her boyfriend's heart, Zhao Lijai cheerfully led him to the 2nd floor. Pointing at one of the rooms, she said, "Brother Yan, this is the junior master bedroom. You can stay here whenever you come to my space." Jin Zuyan turned to her, his voice slightly hoarse as he asked, "Then where are you sleeping?" "Of course, I will be in the master bedroom," she replied with a smile. Hearing this, Jin Zuyan pulled her into his arms and said unhappily, "Aitg, who am I to you?" Caught off guard by the question, Zhao Lijai blinked and replied, "You are my boyfriend." "Since I'm your boyfriend, why would I stay in a separate room? Don't you want me to sleep with you in the same room?" He asked again. Chapter 246, Entering Her Space, 3. When Zhao Lijai heard her boyfriend's words, she detected a dangerous warning in his tone. Meeting his intense gaze, she swallowed nervously and asked, "Brother Yan, you want to sleep in the master bedroom?" Jin Zuyan let out a low chuckle and traced her lips with his thumb as he said slowly, "Aitg, I only want to sleep in your bed. I don't care whether it's in the master bedroom or not." The moment she heard that, Zhao Lijai felt her mind explode and go completely blank. It took her a while to recover before she stammered, "Brother Yan, let's talk about this later. We should leave now, or our team members might start looking for us." Jin Zuyan saw through her attempt to escape and said firmly, "Aitg, your bed is mine. Only I'm allowed to sleep beside you." Leaning down, he kissed her lightly before adding, "Even if we share a bed, I won't do anything without your permission. So don't push me away, okay?" Being hugged so tightly, Zhao Lijai recalled his words and the way he had behaved over the past few days when they shared a bed. He had only ever held her while they slept, nothing more. She wasn't someone who was naive about such matters. Even if she hadn't experienced it herself, she had seen plenty of people doing it in public in her past life. Glancing at her handsome boyfriend, she thought, if I really end up sleeping with him, wouldn't I be the one gaining the most? Since I wouldn't be at a disadvantage, why should I refuse him? After making up her mind, she nodded and replied, "Okay then." The moment she said this, Jin Zuyan smiled and kissed her for a while. When he finally let her go, he said with a smirk, "Thank you, girlfriend." Zhao Lijai glared at him and took several deep breaths to calm her racing heart. Only when she was no longer breathless did she bring him out of her space. When they reappeared inside the abandoned store, Jin Zuyan held her hands and said, "Aitg, thank you for trusting me." At first, she hadn't planned to let him know that her space could grow crops and house living beings. But when she saw him walking away, she was suddenly overwhelmed by the fear of losing him if she kept hiding things. After spending so many days together, she could no longer treat him as indifferently as she had in her past life. She didn't know exactly when it started, but now, the thought of losing him was unbearable. Before her mind could weigh the pros and cons, she had already chased after him, grabbed his hand, and brought him to the empty store. Now that she had shared her most important secret, she felt relieved and free. Looking at him, she asked softly, "Brother Yan, are you happy?" Jin Zuyan nodded with a wide grin as he replied, "Happy. As long as you are happy, then it's worth it." Just as her words fell, Qin Luzi's voice came from outside. "Captain, sister-in-law, we are ready to go." Hearing this, the two of them opened the door and stepped out. After they left, Qin Luzi walked into the store and looked around. He was sure that his captain and sister-in-law had disappeared for a while before reappearing. The only blue dots on his radar had vanished without moving, meaning something in this store had blocked their location. He searched the place thoroughly but found nothing. Although he was still confused, he eventually gave up and left. Once they packed up, everyone boarded the vehicles and began heading toward the global company's headquarters. It was the largest corporation in the country, and its linen office building was the biggest in the city. From the market area to the global company's buildings, the drive should have taken about 40 minutes. But with countless abandoned cars and roaming zombies blocking the road, it took them 2 hours to reach the area. This time, they parked directly beneath the buildings and were immediately surrounded by zombies. Bangs, bangs, bang. Raw. The zombies roared and slammed against the cars, while the phantom team remained inside. At that moment, Zhang Yuan used the walkie-talkie and asked, "Captain, we are surrounded. Should we use the machine gun to clear a path?" Their armored vehicles were equipped not only with machine guns, but also with cannons. They could easily wipe out the zombies in the area using the weapons, but the noise would attract even more zombies and might also damage the roads. Unless absolutely necessary, they tried to avoid using such weapons. Before Jin Zuyan could respond, Li Sikai spoke up, "Vice Captain, let me try clearing them." Zhang Yuan looked at him and asked, "Sikai, you have an idea?" Li Sikai nodded and replied, "I have never tried it before, so I'm not sure it will work." "It's okay, just give it a try," Jin Zuyan's voice came through the walkie-talkie. Li Sikai nodded and placed his palm on the car's body, channeling his energy into his palm. Crack, crack, crack. In the next moment, indigo-colored lightning crackles, appearing out of nowhere and surrounding the entire armored car. The lightning moved like agile snakes, weaving into a net that pushed the zombies back. Crack, crack, crack. As the net spread, it electrocuted the surrounding zombies, burning them into charred corpses. The lightning net continued to expand until it enveloped all the armored cars, forming a dome-shaped barrier that blocked the zombies outside. Li Sikai pulled his hand back from the car and said with a gentle smile, "Vice Captain, we can go out now." When he opened the door, everyone saw the lightning net outside. Zyro Kai's eyes widened in amazement, and he gave him a thumbs up as he said, "Brother Sikai, your ability is awesome." Li Sikai chuckled at the praise and replied modestly, "It's nothing compared to others." Chapter 247, Another Blue Dot. The dome-shaped lightning barrier had a 50-meter diameter. Judging by how easily the zombies were roasted, Li Sikai's ability power was far from ordinary. Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyan exchanged glances. When they saw the indigo hue of Li Sikai's lightning, they both realized the same thing. His ability wasn't just strong, it was a high-grade mutated ability. Standing beside Li Sikai, Yin Yusheng asked, "Brother Sikai, do you have to keep using your energy to maintain the lightning barrier?" Li Sikai rubbed his chin and replied, "After I expand the barrier to the desired size. I don't need to continuously supply energy after that. I can cut off the connection too. I think the barrier will stay up until the energy runs out." "Can you still control it after you cut the connection?" Zyro Kai asked curiously. Raising his hand, Li Sikai went silent for a moment before nodding. "I can reconnect." To prove it, he flicked his fingers. Crack, crack, boom, boom. Suddenly, 2 lightning whips shot out from the barrier, lashing at the zombies nearby. With every flick of his fingers, the whips struck with destructive force, tearing the zombies apart. Turning to Zyrokai, Lisekai explained, "If I attack like this though, I need to actively use my energy." Watching the ferocity of his attack, Zyrokai couldn't help but ask, "Brother Sekai, how long can you maintain the barrier and attack at the same time?" Lisekai closed his eyes briefly, feeling out the energy reserves in his body. After comparing the energy stored in his body and the consumption needed to maintain the barrier and launching attacks, he replied, "With my current energy reserves, I should be able to hold out for about 3 hours before running out of energy." As soon as he said this, everyone around him sucked in a sharp breath. They had always thought their own abilities were impressive, but compared to this late bloomer, their powers felt like child's play. Noticing their stunned expressions, Lee Sekai smiled modestly and replied, "No matter how much energy I have, it's still more practical to use guns." With that, he clenched his fist, and the lightning whips retracted back into the barrier. Then, he pulled out his airgun and started shooting zombies. Seeing this, the rest of the team snapped out of their daze and joined him. As they killed the zombies outside the building, a man was watching them from the top floor. After observing for a moment, he turned and walked into a hidden room concealed within the wall. Inside, he changed out of his suit and into a set of nanotechnology clothing. The moment the fabric touched his skin, it changed color, seamlessly blending to match his skin color. The outfit was highly advanced, durable, water-resistant, fireproof, and resistant to UV radiation and harmful substances. It also provided protection against viruses, fungi, and bacteria. Moreover, the suit could generate power to activate a self-defense system, while automatically regulating temperature and humidity. As long as he wore it, climate change posed no threat. Creating this nanotech had cost him an immeasurable fortune and effort. He had recruited researchers from all over the world and poured years of effort into the project. And after all that, they had only succeeded in producing 30 sets. After donning the suit, the man opened a glass box and retrieved 3 rings forged from an unknown metal. Before wearing them, he let a drop of blood fall onto each one. A moment later, the rings pulsed with a soft blue light. Satisfied, he smiled and slid them onto the fingers of his left hand. With a simple wave, weapons, nanotech clothing, gold bars, and several vials of unknown medicine were collected into one of the storage rings. He then changed into a casual outfit, a blue shirt over a white t-shirt, black trousers, and matching blue sneakers. Once dressed, he walked toward the exit and opened the door. The corridor was covered with mutilated zombie corpses, and the once white walls were now stained with congealed black blood. Unfazed by the gory scene, the man stepped through the corridor unhurriedly. His footsteps squelched against the sticky blood and rotting flesh. Checking his expensive watch, he smiled faintly and murmured, "It's time to leave this place." Outside the building, Jin Zuyan and his team had finally finished clearing out the zombies in the area. Despite having blocked so many zombies, the lightning barrier was still intact, crackling with indigo sparks. With a wave of Lee Sekai's hand, the lightning barrier disappeared in an instant. Seeing this, Zyrokai clicked his tongue and said, "Brother Sekai, your barrier is so strong. With this, we won't have to worry about zombie hordes anymore. It might work against normal zombies, but I don't think my barrier could hold off a high-level zombies attack for long," Lee Sekai replied modestly. "Brother Sekai, you are too humble," Zyrokai sighed. Before entering the building, Zhao Lijai had stored their armored cars inside her space. When they stepped inside the lobby, they found the ground was covered with black blood and the corpses of zombies scattered everywhere. Seeing the gruesome scene, Jin Zuyan frowned and burned the corpses with his black flame. As they moved forward, he warned, "Be careful, something is hiding in this place." At that moment, Chin Luzi suddenly said, "Captain, someone is coming." He was paying attention to the map in his mind, where a single blue dot was approaching their location. Aside from his captain, sister-in-law, and Pei Yijun, this was the 4th blue dot he had ever seen since he awakened his psychic-type ability. Not long after, they heard the sound of a metal door opening, followed by a series of light footsteps. They immediately raised their guns, aiming toward the source of the sound. 5 minutes later, a man appeared from the corridor and turned to face them. Seeing so many weapons pointed at him, he chuckled and said casually, "Comrades, you come to my place uninvited and aim your guns at me. Isn't that a little rude?" Chapter 248, Thick Skin. The moment Zhao Lijai heard his voice, her heart skipped a beat. She stepped forward, and upon seeing the familiar handsome face smiling at her, her eyes widened in shock. "Vice Captain," she exclaimed. When everyone heard this, they turned to look at her. Jin Zuyan was taken aback and turned his gaze to the man. The moment his eyes landed on the handsome face, he muttered softly, "It's him." Raising his eyebrows, the man walked slowly toward them and asked, "Little sister, do you know me?" Hearing the familiar voice speak unfamiliar words, Zhao Lijai snapped out of her daze. She shook her head and replied, "I mistook you for someone else." The man didn't believe her for a second. Her reaction, gaze, and behavior all told him that she knew him and that their relationship had once been close. But he had no memory of meeting this girl before, so it shouldn't have been possible. At that moment, he felt a sharp killing intent directed at him. When he turned his gaze, he met Jin Zuyan's cold eyes. The corner of his lips lifted in amusement. Well, these two are quite interesting. I should stick around and see what's going on," he thought to himself. Having made up his mind, he stepped forward with a gentle smile and said, "Comrades, my name is Li Kixuan. I came here looking for supplies, but there is nothing useful left." As he finished, he placed his well-maintained fingers on his defined abs and added pitifully, "I haven't eaten in 2 days. Could you spare me some food?" The moment Zhao Lijai heard this, her heart ached. Her vice-captain had always held a special place in her heart. He was the only one who had treated her kindly and protected her for many years. To her, he was family, like a big brother. Now that she had the ability to produce food, she couldn't bear to see him go hungry. His pitiful tone, lowered gaze, and seemingly weakened state only added to her sense of guilt. Without hesitation, she nodded and said, "I have some food with me, you can have it." She unzipped her backpack as she walked over to him. Standing before him, she pulled out a lunch box filled with 5 rice balls, a self-heating hot pot, 2 ready-to-eat sausages, and a bottle of water. Li Kixuan had only been testing the waters. He never expected the girl to be so generous. Holding the food and water in his arms, he looked at her in mild surprise. But the expression faded quickly, replaced by his usual gentlemanly demeanor. He smiled at her and said, "Thank you, little sister. You are a good person." Receiving a good person card from her long-lost brother, Zhao Lijai grinned like a fool and replied, "It's nothing. If you need more, just let me know." Just after she spoke, her wrist was grabbed, and she was pulled back by Jin Zuyan. Looking up, she saw her boyfriend glaring coldly at her brother. Wrapping his arm around her, Jin Zuyan said, "My girlfriend is generous, but she's already taken. If you need more food or water, ask Zyro Kai or Feng Yun." Then lowering his eyes to her, he asked sourly, "Aitg, did you change your heart?" Zhao Lijai was stunned by his sudden question. Even though she was close with her vice-captain, her feelings for Jin Zuyan were far deeper. Noticing his jealousy, she quickly held his hand and said, "No, you are the only one I like, don't overthink it." Jin Zuyan said nothing, but his cold gaze returned to Li Kixuan. Full of silent provocation, a clear declaration of dominance. Seeing this, Li Kixuan chuckled and said, "Comrade, don't worry. I have no interest in someone else's girl." "You better not," Jin Zuyan replied coldly. Then, turning to his team, he said, "We are heading to the next building." "Yes, Captain," the team replied in unison. Without sparing Li Kixuan another glance, Jin Zuyan took Zhao Lijai's hand and led her toward the entrance. Just before they left, Li Kixuan called out, "If you are looking for supplies, check the warehouse instead of the office buildings." Hearing this, Zhang Yuan turned back and asked, "Comrade, do you know where the warehouse is?" Li Kixuan nodded and said, "I can show you the way." Zhang Yuan glanced at his captain, clearly uneasy about the man and Zhao Lijai's strange behavior around him. Jin Zuyan weighed the pros and cons, then said, "Lead the way." "Okay," Li Kixuan said, joining them. Walking behind, Qin Luzi frowned as he checked the mental map in his mind. The color of this man's aura was a shade bluer than Zhao Lijai's, but still lighter than the captain's. That meant this man's ability was very strong. The warehouse area is located in the suburbs. If you are searching for supplies, this office district is a dead end, Li Kixuan explained as he sat in the back seat. With Jin Zuyan driving and Zhao Lijai sitting on the passenger seat, there was enough room for Li Kixuan to sit comfortably on the back seat. As he ate, he noticed the girl repeatedly glancing at him through the rearview mirror. He was aware of how good-looking he was. Many girls had admired him over the years, but her boyfriend was just as attractive in a different way, so he couldn't understand why this girl kept sneaking glances. Of course, since he noticed it, so did Jin Zuyan. His grip on the steering wheel tightened as he asked irritably, Aitg, is he good-looking? Huh? Zhao Lijai blinked, confused by the sudden question. Is he more good-looking, or am I? He asked again. As soon as he said that, Li Kixuan choked on his food and coughed violently. He quickly grabbed the water bottle and took a few gulps. He never expected this man, who looked so solemn, could utter those shameless words without changing his expressions. His skin was thick. Chapter 249, A Refined Gentleman, 1. Seeing how he coughed so violently, Zhao Lijai asked, Brother, are you all right? Waving his hand, Li Kixuan replied hoarsely, I'm fine, but your boyfriend doesn't seem fine. Zhao Lijai nodded matter-of-factly and replied, Well, my boyfriend is very jealous. It's normal for him to say things like that. Just pretend you didn't hear it. Li Kixuan was speechless by her casual response. He had been curious about them, but now he just wanted to avoid becoming their third wheel. At that moment, he finally understood why everyone else had insisted on squeezing into the other car. The sweetness between this couple was overwhelming. He felt like his teeth might rot from it. Unaware of his internal suffering, Zhao Lijai reached out to stroke her boyfriend's arm and asked, Brother Yan, why are you angry? She looked at him earnestly. They both knew the man in the back seat had once been her benefactor, so she couldn't understand Jin Zuyan's cold attitude. Aitg, I'm angry. I don't want to talk right now, Jin Zuyan said coldly. Zhao Lijai sighed deeply and coaxed him. Even if you are angry, you can't ignore your girlfriend. And she meant it. She didn't give him a single moment of silence. For the next 2 hours, she talked non-stop. Her chatter was louder than a parrot's. Li Kixuan nearly lost his mind, but Jin Zuyan clearly enjoyed it. 2 hours later, they finally arrived in the suburban area. As they parked the car, Li Kixuan stepped out looking more exhausted than when they had first seen him. Xirokai observed him and commented, This comrade's mental strength is impressive. After being tortured for 2 hours, he was still able to keep his cool. He's definitely not simple. Feng Yun nodded in agreement and replied, But I doubt he will ever want to ride in the same car with Captain and sister-in-law again. Looks like we will need to take out another vehicle. It's getting too crowded anyway. As they chatted, Qin Luzi kept his eyes on Li Kixuan and said quietly, Don't lower your guard. We don't know who he is or where he came from. Even if he looks weak, he is very strong. Hearing this, Xirokai asked, Brother Qin, is there something wrong with him? Qin Luzi didn't respond, but his expression said everything. Li Kixuan was dangerous. After they got out of the armored vehicles, Li Kixuan said, We have to walk for 500 meters to reach the warehouse. Can't we use the cars? Yin Yusheng asked. I'm not sure. Last I heard, the road was damaged and needed repairs, Li Kixuan replied. Glancing at him, Qin Luzi asked, How do you know so much about Global Group? Who are you? Li Kixuan smiled casually and said, I forgot to tell you. I'm the grandson of Global Group's owner. The moment he said this, everyone looked at him in surprise. No wonder he looked like a young master from a wealthy family. He was a third-generation rich kid. Qin Luzi checked the map in his mind and said, There are several groups of zombies scattered within a 500-meter radius. Hearing this, Li Kixuan's eyes flashed with surprise. He looked at him and asked, Comrade, how did you know that? Before he could answer, Jin Zuyan said, Check your equipment. We need to clear the zombies before sunset. Understood. With the captain's order, everyone quickly checked their ammo and gear. While the others were busy, Zhao Lijai walked over to Li Kixuan and asked, Brother, do you have any weapons? Thinking she was asking to borrow one, Li Kixuan shook his head. I don't use weapons, he replied. Then he opened his palm, and a wisp of red flame floated above it. Smiling, he added, I fight with my ability. When everyone saw his red flame, they only gave him a glance. For someone to survive alone in the office district, they assumed his ability would be something powerful. Unexpectedly, it seemed to be a basic fire type. While the others lost interest, Qin Luzi never took his eyes off Li Kixuan. He didn't believe this person had only a standard fire ability. From what he observed, Li Kixuan had at least an extraordinary ability user, possibly a dual ability user. Otherwise, there was no explanation why his energy showed a blue dot instead of a green dot in his map. Under everyone's gaze, Zhao Lijai pulled out her dagger, intending to lend it to him. But before she could hand it over, Jin Zuyan appeared at her side and said meaningfully, Aitg, he doesn't need a weapon. Hearing this, Zhao Lijai remembered how strong her vice-captain was. She looked at her boyfriend and said with a smile, "I forgot about that. Brother Yan, you have an excellent memory." Jin Zuyan patted her head and replied, "I remember everything related to you." Standing beside them, Li Kixuan sighed and walked away. Even with a strong mental state, being force-fed dog food for 2 hours was enough. He was already too full to digest more. Seeing him walk over, Zyro Kai patted his shoulder in sympathy and said, "Brother, you will get used to them eventually." Then he handed him a backpack and said, "Here, there is some dried food, water and emergency medicine inside. Take this with you just in case you need them later. You shouldn't rely on your ability alone. If you run out of energy mid-battle, you could lose your life," Wenmo added as he handed him a blade. Taking the blade and the backpack, Li Kixuan said, "I'm not used to blades. Comrade, do you have any other weapons?" Raising an eyebrow, Wenmo asked, "What kind of weapon do you want?" "I learned wushu when I was young, so I can use spears, longswords and fans," Li Kixuan replied casually. Surprised by this information, Zyro Kai asked with disbelief, "Brother, you can use a fan as a weapon?" Chapter 250, A Refined Gentleman 2. Li Kixuan nodded at Zyro Kai's words and replied, "If you channel internal energy into it, even a folding fan made of paper can become a powerful weapon." Intrigued by his words, Wenmo said, "Then I will make you an iron fan." 2 minutes later, the blade had been reshaped into an iron fan. It didn't have sharp edges, but when Li Kixuan held it, he smiled and said, "Comrade, this iron fan is very well made, thank you." "Brother, try it out," Zyro Kai urged. "Okay," Li Kixuan nodded. With a flick of his wrist, the iron fan unfolded smoothly. Li Kixuan smiled, and with a wave of his hand, fire burst from the fan like a flamethrower. The fire stretched more than 6 meters, burning everything in its path. The air around them grew noticeably hotter as time passed by. Startled by the fire, Zyro Kai exclaimed, "Whoa." Li Kixuan chuckled at his reaction. With another wave of the fan, the flame shifted direction and surged toward the roadblocks. Boom! The flame took the form of a dragon, crashing through several roadblocks. After the obstacles were destroyed, the fire dragon soared upward and burst into countless fireballs that scattered across the open field. Boom, booms, boom. Each fireball exploded on impact, leaving deep craters and filling the air with the acrid scent of burning. Standing with one hand behind his back, Li Kixuan folded the fan with a flick and looked like a refined gentleman from an ancient era. He smiled at the group and asked, "Comrades, would you like me to show more?" Everyone was shocked by the power of Li Kixuan's ability. Even Zhao Lijai was taken aback. "I never knew my vice-captain was this powerful," she muttered. Hearing her words, Jin Zuyan reached out and pinched her cheeks. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Girlfriend, he is not your vice-captain anymore." With her cheeks squished, Zhao Lijai's mouth looked like a fish gasping for air when she said, "Boyfriend, your sourness is overwhelming." Feeling annoyed, Jin Zuyan leaned down and bit her lips lightly before saying, "I am jealous, so pay more attention to me." Okay, I won't care too much about him anymore," she replied helplessly. "Good." After giving his girlfriend another kiss, Jin Zuyan checked his watch and said, "Let's go." Before they left, Feng Yun stored the armored vehicles into his space. With Qin Luzi in the lead, the group began making their way toward the warehouse. Along the way, Li Kixuan observed the Phantom team's zombie-clearing tactics. They handled their airguns with ease, moving smoothly and killing with precision. Their teamwork and coordination were top-notch. From how they operated, he was certain these people were no ordinary civilians. They looked more like trained soldiers. Aside from them, only 4 in the group looked like actual civilians. Even the girl who had called him vice-captain didn't seem ordinary. Her movements were sharp, calculated, and full of killing intent. She scanned her surroundings with sharp eyes, reacting quickly to any threat. Rather than a soldier, she resembled a cold-blooded mercenary more. After walking for half an hour, they finally arrived at the warehouse entrance. Without wasting time, Wenmo waved his hand and unlocked the gate. As the big padlock fell to the ground, the gate was pushed open. Zra! The moment the gate opened, a horde of trapped zombies rushed at them. Without hesitation, Wenmo raised his hand and created a 2-meter-high wall, instantly blocking the zombies. Everyone then leaped up and positioned themselves on top of the metal wall. Pop, pop, pop. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of metal bullets piercing skulls echoed through the air as they pulled their triggers. Feeling curious, Lee Kixuan jumped up to join them. From his vantage point, he could see the warehouse interior more clearly. The moment he saw the situation, his expression darkened. There were far more zombies inside than he had expected. He frowned deeply and went silent. Back when the chaos began, he had personally ordered his subordinates to let the workers in the warehouse evacuate and provided them with supplies. They were supposed to return home safely, but based on what he was seeing now, it was clear his orders had been ignored. The number of workers here wasn't massive, but it wasn't small either. Judging by the zombies with many with missing limbs, rotting wounds and torn uniforms, these people had never been let out. They had been locked in. While Lee Kixuan stood there, lost in thought, Chin Luzi kept his gaze fixed on him while he killed zombies. Noticing this, Zyro Kai leaned closer to Feng Yun and whispered, "Brother Feng Yun, don't you think Brother Chin is paying a little too much attention to the new guy?" While pulling the trigger and killing a zombie, Feng Yun replied, "What makes you say that? Just look at him, he hasn't taken his eyes off that guy, even while killing zombies. I have noticed it since earlier. Doesn't the way he looks at him remind you of how our captain looks at our sister-in-law?" Zyro Kai said seriously. Hearing this, Feng Yun nearly choked on air. He glanced at Zyro Kai with disbelief. "Have you been reading too many of those romance novels lately? Or did you drown yourself when taking a shower that your brain is flooded now?" he asked dryly. "I'm serious," Zyro Kai insisted. "You don't know Brother Chin like I do. He's never paid attention to anyone except our captain. Now that the captain's focused on sister-in-law, of course, Brother Chin would feel lonely." He pointed subtly toward Lee Kixuan and added, "And that guy, he is super good-looking, easily on par with our captain. If Brother Chin's attracted to him, I think it's totally normal." Feng Yun rolled his eyes at his words and said, "You really have been corrupted by those romance novels." "What do you mean by corrupted? Love is universal. It's not limited by gender or race," Zyro Kai argued passionately. Chapter 251, Who Would Believe It? Too lazy to debate with Zyro Kai, Feng Yun just replied nonchalantly, Okay, whatever you say." Seeing he was being brushed off, Zyro Kai sighed dramatically and said, "Young man, you are still too green to understand the world of mature men." "I'm 2 years older than you," Feng Yun reminded him flatly. Hearing this, Zyro Kai was left speechless. He couldn't find any words to refute the fact. While the two of them were gossiping, Chin Luzi suddenly noticed something strange. The blue dot representing Lee Kixuan on his mental map flickered. The color deepened briefly, then returned to normal. Alarmed by this, Chin Luzi narrowed his eyes. If this fluctuation meant Lee Kixuan was preparing to attack his team members, he wouldn't hesitate to strike first. Quietly, he moved closer to him, fully prepared to act the moment he sensed danger. After more than an hour, they finally finished clearing the area. With a wave of his hand, Jin Zuyin threw a black fireball and burned all the corpses, while Zyro Kai efficiently collected the crystals left behind. Jumping down from the wall, Lee Kixuan walked over and asked, "Comrade, what are these crystals?" "Brother, you don't know," Zyro Kai looked surprised. "These are crystals found inside zombies' heads. They contain energy. We can absorb it to recover our strength and stamina. Plus, they can be exchanged for supplies," he explained. "These crystals sound pretty useful," Lee Kixuan said. Nodding, Zyro Kai replied, "You should keep any you find in the future. You never know when you will need them in an emergency." After giving his explanation, he walked over to Zhao Lijai and handed her the bag full of crystals. She poured them into her backpack, zipped it up, and slung it onto her back before rejoining the team heading deeper into the warehouse. As she fastened her backpack, Lee Kixuan's eyes flashed with subtle surprise. His gaze lingered on her back with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Then he chuckled quietly and muttered under his breath, "Interesting, so that's how it is." After witnessing how Zyro Kai and Feng Yun used their space-type ability, he realized that Zhao Lijai's backpack was different from others. She took out so much food for him before, but her backpack didn't show any change in size. Now that she poured so many crystals into her backpack, it also didn't bulge. From this alone, he could draw the conclusion that she was a space-type ability user. But from how these people behaved, he was sure that they didn't want him to find out about that girl's space. As for the reason why, he still didn't know. When they reached the first warehouse, Zhang Yuan stopped him outside and said, "Comrade, you can take a rest here. We will take care of the supplies." Raising his eyebrows, Li Kixuan said, "Comrade, by rights, this place is owned by my family. You are stopping me from entering and planning to take all of the supplies. Isn't that too much?" Zhang Yuan hesitated for a moment before he said, "I understand your point of view. I will discuss this matter with my captain, but you can't enter the warehouse." Li Kixuan stared at him for a while before he said, "All right." Seeing that he was willing to cooperate with them, Zhang Yuan's impression of him improved and he said, "Thank you for understanding." Li Kixuan said nothing and walked towards the flowerbed area. The flowers and bushes had dried up, leaving only some dried branches and rotten leaves. He sat on the flowerbed border and watched them with interest. Meanwhile, Zhao Lijai, Xiao Kai, and Feng Yun entered the warehouse while Jin Zuyan and the rest guarded outside. The moment they saw the items stored inside the warehouse, they exchanged glances and quickly went to work. Xiao Kai had the smallest space, so he only took 1/10 of the items inside the warehouse. Feng Yun had a bigger space, so he took 3/10 of the items, while the rest were taken by Zhao Lijai. While collecting the supplies, she realized that this warehouse stored various medicines for common illnesses. While the medicine wasn't as valuable as those they found in the factory district, these common medicines were crucial during the awakening process of ability, especially the fever medicine and antibiotics. 10 minutes later, the three of them came out, and they went to the next warehouse. When they finished collecting all the supplies, the sun had started to set. Checking his watch, Jin Zuyan said, "We will spend the night here." With his order, the members went to one of the warehouses and built 2 bonfires, while the rest started building tents. Seeing this, Li Kixuan walked over and asked, "Comrade, you took away my family's things and stayed in my family's warehouse. Don't you have anything to say to me?" Jin Zuyan turned to him and asked back, "What do you want for compensation?" Li Kixuan thought for a moment and said, "How about you let me join your team? You see, I'm alone and weak. I won't be able to survive for long without any help. If I join your team, my chance of survival will be higher." As soon as he said these words, Zhao Lijai choked on her water and coughed. After calming down, she looked at him as if she were looking at a scammer. Despite his lean figure, he was anything but a weak man. In her previous life, he even boasted about how powerful his waist was and compared his family jewels' size with their teammates, behaving as if he was the bandit leader. Now he was talking as if he were a weak gentleman. Who would believe it? While she, Jin Zuyan, and Qin Luzi didn't believe him, the rest of the team members seemed to believe him. After a moment of silence, Chen Ji said, "Captain, how about letting him join us? His ability is not bad, and with more training, he might be able to boost our team's combat power." Chapter 252, Rejection. "Captain, we don't have many members. In the future, some of our members might have to stay in the lab to do research, so it's not a bad thing to recruit more members," Shen Jinj added. Jin Zuyan had no intention of keeping this man in his team, but what his members said also made sense. In the future, the situation would become more dangerous, and with their current strength, it might not be enough. After he considered the pros and cons, he turned to his girlfriend and asked, "Aitg, what do you think about this matter?" When she heard this, Zhao Lijai replied without hesitation, "Brother Yan, I will follow your decision." Hearing her reply, Jin Zuyan made up his mind. Since his girlfriend didn't care too much about this man, then it was all right to let him join his team. After all, this person would become one of the big guys in the future. Roping him into his team was not a bad thing. After a moment of pause, he walked closer to him and said, "You can join my team, but you have to keep your distance from my girlfriend. She is mine." "Captain, I don't know what makes you have the impression that I'm interested in your girlfriend, but you can rest assured. As I said, I don't have any interest in becoming a third party," Li Kixuan replied with a smile. Jin Zuyan glanced at him for a moment before he said, "Old Qin, I will leave him under your supervision. Feng Yun, you will learn under Li Sikai." Understood. Since they had a new member, everyone introduced themselves and decided to have a hot pot to welcome him to the team. When Zhao Lijai heard this, she pulled Xiao Kai to the corner and took out a pot of soup she had cooked before. "Sister-in-law, when did you prepare this?" Xiao Kai asked. "When I have nothing to do, I prepare some soup," Zhao Lijai replied casually. Then she took out some fresh ingredients such as eggs, meat, and vegetables. She also took out some glass noodles and said, "Keep it. The new member doesn't know about my space, and your captain doesn't want him to know, so you have to act as my cover." Xiao Kai nodded and replied seriously, "Sister-in-law, leave it to me. I will become a good shield for you." After he stored the ingredients in his space, the two of them walked back as if nothing had happened. That night, they had hot pot for dinner before they took turns to sleep. Meanwhile, Wei Wying and his team almost turned bald from worry. At this moment, several leaders, including Wei Wying, were sitting in the meeting room while they were having a phone call using satellite communication. Captain Wei, we hope you can understand our difficulty. The situation on our side is not better than yours. We really cannot spare any people to help you clear the horde. Hearing the rejection for the nth time, Wei Wying's face darkened. He took a deep breath to calm down before he tried to change the other party's mind. Comrade Pei, you have to understand that if we leave the zombie horde alone, the situation will get out of hand one day. This is not the time for you to preserve your strength and ignore the big matter. What's more, your son and his team are still trapped in the middle of the zombie horde. Are you not going to do anything to save him? He asked. As soon as he said these words, the other let out a chuckle and said, Captain Wei, I forgot to inform you. My son and his team have already returned safely. They also cleared out 1/4 of the zombies. Since my son already helped you clear out some zombies, I think we have done enough. Regarding this matter, my base won't intervene. You can do as you see fit. The moment he finished his words, the call was hung up. When they heard the busy tone coming from the phone, one of the leaders slammed the table and said angrily, Those capitalists only know how to calculate their benefits and never think about the consequences of their actions. Everyone had the same thoughts as him, but no one had the time to complain. Right now, their priority was how to handle the zombie horde. With each passing day, the number of zombies continued to grow. If they didn't act as soon as possible, their chance of victory would be less than 1%. By then, forget about clearing the zombies, they could only do their best to escape. Captain Wei, what should we do now? One of the leaders asked. Wei Wying frowned deeply as he thought. After a long silence, he finally said, Everyone, right now, we don't have enough manpower to clear the zombie horde. I will find a way to contact other survivor camps to see if we can get some help in 2 days. Before that, I need everyone to organize our people and prepare for evacuation. He looked at everyone and said, If there is no solution in 2 days, my team will stay behind to buy time while everyone evacuates. The moment he said these words, the leaders were taken aback. While they had also experienced battle in their youth, it had been years since they retired from the battlefield and went behind the screen. Now facing a crisis, they didn't fear death, but they no longer had the power to fight, leaving them feeling helpless. After a moment of silence, one of the leaders finally said, Captain Wei, we will follow your decision. Wei Wying nodded at him, stood up, and left without looking back. His vice-captain nodded at the leaders and followed him. When they were outside the meeting room, the vice-captain asked, Captain, we have tried to contact other survivor camps, but so far, there has been no reply at all. There is one more camp we haven't contacted, Wei Wying replied. Hearing this, the vice-captain's eyes flashed for a moment before he asked, Captain, you mean Zun Qi's camp? Prepare the car, I will go visit him personally tomorrow, Wei Wying said. Understood. Chapter 253, Wei Wying's Visit, 1. The next morning, Wei Wying left the survivor camp with 3 of his team members at sunrise. When the soldiers saw him leaving, they quickly opened the gate and said, Captain Wei, good luck on your journey. Wei Wying nodded and said, If something happens, go find my team. I will return as soon as possible. Understood, the soldiers nodded and said in unison. As they drove, Wei Wying checked the map and said, Don't take the highway and stop at the gas station first. Yes, Captain. After driving for 40 minutes, they reached the gas station, and after refueling, they continued their journey. Due to the bad condition of the road, they had to take some detours and fight against zombies. When they arrived at Zun Qi's base, the sky had changed color and the sun was setting. Seeing 2 lines of people waiting to enter the base, one of his men looked at Wei Wying and said, Captain, there are so many people here. Wei Wying pointed at the side gate and said, Go to that gate. Noticing that the side gate was used as an entrance for vehicles, his soldier drove the car over. When the guards saw their car, one of them raised his hand and said, Stop. After the car had fully stopped, the guard walked over and knocked on the window. The moment the window was lowered, the soldier was surprised. He quickly gave a salute and said, Captain Wei Wying. Wei Wying nodded at him and said, We came to find Captain Zun Qi. Please inform him. The soldier nodded and said, Captain Wei, please wait in the tent. Wei Wying and his team didn't make things difficult for them, and parked the car to the side before they came out and entered the side tent. Inside the tent, the soldiers took their temperature and checked their bodies for any wounds. After they were done, the soldiers gave them a bottle of mineral water, 2 pieces of rice ball, and a piece of sausage. Seeing the food, Wei Wying and his team were surprised. Compared to the thin porridge they ate in their camp, the food given by Sun Qi and his team was much better. When the soldier noticed they didn't eat or drink, he said, "Captain Wei, these foods and water are freshly made and safe for consumption. You don't have to worry." Hearing this, Wei Wying shook his head and said, "I'm not worried about that. I'm just surprised that your base is able to give up these foods." The moment the soldier heard this, he smiled and said, "Well, it's all thanks to Captain Jin and his team. If not for them helping us clear the zombies and find supplies, we might not even have plain water, let alone rice and sausage." Wei Wying was stunned by his words, and it took him a while to regain his composure. He looked at the soldier and asked, "Comrade, this Captain Jin you are talking about, is it the one from the Phantom team?" The soldier found his question strange, but he still nodded and replied, "It's indeed Captain Jin Zuyan." As soon as he said this, Wei Wying and his team members broke out in smiles. They thought that the Phantom team had fallen in the factory district. Fortunately, they managed to survive. "This is great. With Captain Jin and his team around, our chance of winning will be higher," one of Wei Wying's team members said excitedly. Just after he finished his words, Sun Qi entered the tent and asked, "What chance of winning?" Hearing his voice, Wei Wying stood up, placed the water and food on the table, and then walked over. After they exchanged salutes, he said, "Captain Sun, I came today to discuss an important matter regarding the zombie horde located near the border." When he heard this, Sun Qi's expression turned solemn and he said, "Captain Wei, let's change to another place to talk. This way, please." With him leading them, the soldier quickly opened the gate and let them in. As they drove the car, Wei Wying and his team realized that the survivors living in this base didn't look as depressed as those living in the survivor camp. Even though they still looked thin, their steps were brisk and their eyes were full of light and hope. While they were amazed by the difference, they arrived at the tallest building in the base. The building was one of the property management office buildings before the apocalypse. After they settled down, they chose this place as the main building for their operational office. Although there were solar panels, the energy was only enough to operate the lamps and some computers, so they could only use the stairs to reach the meeting room located on the 5th floor. While they climbed the stairs, Wei Wying asked, "Captain Sun, why don't you find more solar panels? Climbing stairs every day will be too tiring." When he heard this, Sun Qi smiled and replied, "Now that we are busy handling the operation of the base, we have no time to exercise. Climbing stairs is a good way to keep our bodies fit." The moment he said these words, his team nodded and said solemnly, "Captain is right. We have to keep training in case of an emergency." At the same time, Wei Wying and his team were speechless. They had heard about how crazy Sun Qi was regarding training his team. They thought that no matter how much he loved exercising, there would be a limit. Unexpectedly, he did go beyond their expectations. He was still able to find a way to train even during his daily duties. Perhaps due to their daily practice of climbing stairs, they didn't even break a sweat when they walked onto the 5th floor. Opening the meeting room door, Sun Qi said, "Captain Wei, this way please." After everyone took their seats, one of Sun Qi's men poured a cup of water for them before taking his seat and opening a notebook, ready to record the meeting progress. Chapter 254, Wei Wying's Visit, 2. Wei Wying drank some water before he said, "Captain Sun, I heard that Jin Zuyan and his team are staying here. Is that true?" Sun Qi nodded and said, "Captain Jin and his team are indeed staying in my base, but they are currently outside gathering supplies." Hearing this, Wei Wying frowned and asked, "Do you know when they will return?" Captain Jin said it should be around a few days, Sun Qi replied. After a moment of pause, he asked, "Captain Wei, why did you ask about the Phantom team?" "This time I came to ask for your help. A few days ago, a group of mercenaries spotted a zombie horde near the Linen border area. The number of zombies is around 1,000 and it keeps increasing. By now, the number should be around 2,000 or more," Wei Wying said. Sun Qi was taken aback by this news and asked, "Have you asked Jiangning base to send over people to help?" Wei Wying nodded and replied, "I did, but they said they couldn't spare anyone. What's more, Pei Yijun was trapped before in the center of the horde, and he cleared out some of the zombies during his escape." The moment he heard this, Sun Qi frowned and said, so they are using this as an excuse to wash their hands of the matter. The situation in the survivor camp is messy, and the number of soldiers is not enough to hold off the zombie horde. We tried to hire the ability users, but none agreed to stay, Wei Wang sighed. Sun Qi frowned deeply at his words. After a moment of thought, he asked, "What plan do you have?" "I have contacted several camps to ask for reinforcements, but so far, none have given any positive response. I already told my people to prepare for evacuation. If I can't gather enough manpower to clear out the zombies, we might have to abandon the camp," Wei Wang replied. Sun Qi tapped his fingers on the table for a moment before he said, "I will send my people and help you evacuate the people. Bring them to my base. Until we take care of the zombie horde, we can only abandon the camp." Wei Wang didn't expect him to take in so many people and said, "The number of survivors in the temporary camp is more than 30,000, while the amount of supplies we have at this moment is only enough for at most 3 days. Are you sure you want to take in so many people?" Raising his eyebrows, Sun Qi asked him back, "Besides this, do you have any other plans?" Wei Wang was stunned by his words. It was as he said, the risk of staying at the border with a zombie horde nearby was very high. Instead of waiting for reinforcements, evacuation was a better move, as it had a higher chance of survival. "But what about the supplies?" he asked. "You don't have to worry about supplies. My team and the Phantom team will take care of that," Sun Qi replied casually. Then he took out a folder from his soldier and handed it to Wei Wang while saying, "These are the regulations of my base. I don't have a problem taking in the survivors as long as they agree to follow the rules. As for the ability users, they are free to join or not. You can read this first before you make your decision," he added with a smile. At first, Wei Wang thought that the rules were about controlling the crime rate in the base, but after he read the regulations, he looked at Sun Qi with surprise. Placing down the folder, he said, "Captain Sun, your method is very good. Following the rules, even ordinary people will be able to earn their supplies and it won't burden the base. It can also solve the lack of supplies and crystals." Not wanting to take the credit, Sun Qi replied, "It's not entirely my idea. Most of the important rules and regulations were suggested by Captain Jin and his girlfriend. I only added some punishments according to military law." Hearing this, Wei Wang asked with disbelief, "Girlfriend? You don't know Jin Zuyan has a girlfriend?" Sun Qi asked him back. Wei Wang thought for a while before he recalled a young woman who had a good relationship with the Phantom team. He nodded and said with realization, "So that's how it is. No wonder she was willing to stay behind and fight alongside Jin Zuyan. Turns out they are a couple." Sun Qi wasn't interested in gossip and said, "We don't have much time to waste. You and your team should take a rest today. Tomorrow my team will go with you and help with the evacuation." Wei Wang nodded and said, "Then I will inform them to prepare and wait for us." Good. After the brief meeting, Wei Wang and his team were led to one of the houses in the residential area. Before the soldier left, he gave them some water and supplies and said, "Captain Wei, if you need anything else, you can just inform us." Looking at the pile of food and water, Wei Wang smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work, comrade." The soldier saluted him and said, "This is my duty. Captain Wei, I will take my leave now." "Go ahead." After the soldier left, Wei Wang made a phone call using his satellite phone. Not long after, the call was picked up, and his vice captain's voice came through the receiver. "Captain Zyro Han, prepare for evacuation." The moment he heard this, Zyro Han asked, "Captain, did Captain Sun refuse to help?" "At the moment, we don't have enough manpower, so we have decided to evacuate everyone to Sun Qi's base first. We will discuss how to deal with the zombie horde when the Phantom team returns," Wei Wang said. As soon as he said this, Zyro Han asked in disbelief, "Captain, you mean Captain Jin and his team are still alive?" Chapter 255, Change of Plan. Hearing Zyro Han's question, Wei Wang said, we will wait until they return to the base before we make a plan to clear out the zombie horde. For now, I need you to inform Gu Sheos and his team to help keep an eye on the ability users." Understood. After the brief phone call, Wei Wang smelled a fragrant aroma coming from the kitchen. When he walked to the dining room, he saw his team members already preparing dinner. Seeing him come in, one of them said, "Captain, we cooked steamed rice and some side dishes. It's been a long time since we had a hot meal. Let's eat first." As he sat down, Wei Wang looked at the steaming, plump rice, a plate of stir-fried vegetables, and a bowl of egg drop soup on the table. He let out a sigh and said, "When I compare the condition in our camp and Sun Chi's base, even I have the urge to join him." When they heard this, one of the members said, "Captain, you are not good at management. I think it's better for us to join Captain Zun's base and just focus on doing missions. With Captain Jin and Captain Zun handling the base operations, we won't have to worry about those old foxes making trouble and can finally relax," another member chimed in. Hearing this, Wei Wang nodded and said, "Let's talk about this after we evacuate everyone first. Once they have moved in, we can find an excuse and just join them directly." When the members heard the first half of his words, they thought their captain wanted to be a leader, but after hearing the latter part, they finally grinned and said, "As expected of our captain, very wise." "All right, let's eat and rest early," Wei Wang said with a chuckle and started eating. While they were enjoying their dinner, Sun Chi was on a phone call in his office. "Captain Jin, when will you and your team be back?" he asked. "We have only been gone a day and you are already asking about my return. Is something urgent happening in the base?" Jin Zuyan replied. Wei Wang came to visit today and brought information about a zombie horde near the Linen border. Currently, the estimated number is around 2,000, but we don't know the exact situation yet, Sun Chi explained. "Has he contacted the people from Jiangning?" Jin Zuyan asked. "He did, but they refused to cooperate. Right now, we plan to evacuate everyone to the base first and discuss a countermeasure when your team is back," Sun Chi replied. Jin Zuyan went silent for a moment, then said, "Once I'm done with things here, I will check out the situation at the border. Send more people to help with the evacuation." Sun Chi was taken aback by his decision and asked, "Captain Jin, are you sure your team can handle the zombie horde?" "My team has faced more dangerous situations and come out alive. You just focus on managing the base. Once those people join the base, keep an eye on those old foxes. If they dare to cause trouble, just kick them out," Jin Zuyan said casually. Sun Chi was speechless for a moment before he said, "Those old foxes have military rank. Do you think it's that easy to kick them out?" Jin Zuyan let out a sigh and asked, "Sun Chi, do you really think the government is still the same as before?" "Right now, the ones holding power are the ability users. If you have decided to take over leadership of the base, then you need to change your mindset. You are no longer working under the government. Now, countless lives rest on your shoulders. You have a responsibility to protect them. If you can't make up your mind and take full control of the base, then I don't see the point in helping you." After saying that, he glanced at his girlfriend and added, "Think about it yourself. My girlfriend is waiting for me to eat, hanging up now." Before Sun Chi could say another word, the call ended with a busy tone. After hanging up, Jin Zuyan put the satellite phone into his pocket and walked toward his girlfriend. Noticing his frown, Zhao Lijai asked, "Brother Yan, what's wrong?" Sitting beside her, Jin Zuyan said, "Tomorrow, we need to go to the border. Sun Chi informed me that a zombie horde was spotted nearby Wei Wang's camp." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai frowned and said in a low voice, "There shouldn't be a zombie horde near the border at this time." Jin Zuyan nodded and replied, "I found it strange too. That's why we will investigate it tomorrow. As for the supplies, we can return to deal with them after handling the horde." "All right, we will do as you say," Zhao Lijai nodded. While the two of them whispered, Li Kixuan sat not far away, watching them with interest. Sitting across from him, Qin Luzi's gaze never left him. Noticing the sharp stare, Li Kixuan smiled and asked, "Brother Qin, did a flower grow on my face? Why are you staring at me for so long?" Despite the teasing, Qin Luzi didn't change his expression and said, "Li Kixuan, now that you have joined the team, you had better behave. If you ever betray us, I will make sure you regret being born." Hearing the warning, Li Kixuan laughed. After a moment, he calmed down and said, "Brother Qin, I don't know why you dislike me so much, but I really don't have any bad intentions toward the team." He observed everyone for a moment before he added with a smile, "If you don't believe me, at least trust your captain's decision." Although Qin Luzi didn't understand why his captain accepted this man, he trusted his judgment. Still, there was something about Li Kixuan that put him on edge, a dangerous aura he couldn't ignore, and the flickering blue dot on his mind.